Welcome back to AtCon 2, everyone. Our next speaker is founder of Oath Keepers, Stewart Rhodes. Stewart graduated summa cum laude from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where his honor thesis focused on political theory of James Madison. While attending UNLV, Stewart taught rape prevention and street crime survival as a volunteer instructor for the UNLV Jean Ninich Women's Center. He also worked as a professional sculptor and as a Nevada State certified concealed carry firearms instructor. After college, he worked on Representative Ron Paul's, from Texas, D.C. staff. Stewart is a graduate of Yale Law School, where his paper Solving the Puzzle of Enemy Combatant Status won Yale Judge William E. Miller Prize for Best Paper on the Bill of Rights. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome founder of Oath Keepers, Stewart Rhodes.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Had a bit of a difficulty there. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. So the topic of this is going to be messaging and well, let's just start with this. Look at Oath Keepers, my example. I started off in the Ron Paul movement, and I worked in the 2008 and 2012 campaigns. And basically what Oath Keepers is, as an example of messaging and mission, is taking the same thing that Congressman Paul has been trying to do with the general population, teaching them about the Constitution, teaching them about rights, teaching them about natural law and liberty, taking that same message and that same strategy, but applying it like a laser focus on a critical audience. And my chosen audience was the current serving military, police, and first responder communities, and also the veterans of those communities, what I call the tip of the spear. And the logic behind that is why not, since we're kind of running out of time in the freedom movement, the police state is growing around us exponentially, why not focus on the critical population, the guys with the guns, the ones to be called on to carry out the orders, and focus on them. And so that's what we did. And so my advice for you as activists is find something like that. In other words, find your niche. We all have a role to play. It's like none of us, I would say none of us has the solution to everything, but we all have a piece of the puzzle. So find the niche, find the mission that you think matters the most to you, that you can contribute the most to. Like Dan, for example, focused on the NDAA. So, and like JPFO, or Gunners of America, focused on gun rights. You can look at the trial by jury. So you can focus on different issues or focus on different strategies. But if you find your niche and find what you think you can best contribute to, like your calling in life, just focus on that. Oh, hold on a second, guys. Why am I getting this crap? Hold on, sorry about that. I'm gonna kill this. I don't know why it's doing this. Sorry about that. I had my screen open and some stupid ad popped up. Find your niche, find your niche and then stick with it. And as far as messaging goes, I think the most important thing to do is just be courageous. One thing I think that will kill you or kill your mission and your activism more than anything else is rolling back or waffling on what you believe in. Say what you believe, be honest, and be forthright, and then be consistent. And that's been a tough road, even with us for Oath Keepers. I've got plenty of people that have left Oath Keepers because of one thing we've done or another thing we've done, stands we've taken. But my bedrock is my oath, and what I know is right. And so I would encourage you, to me, it's like first decide what is right. That's the only question that matters up front, is what is right. What is the right thing to do? And then you can talk about strategy, about, well, okay, what's the best way to walk that path? What's the best way to do what's right? But you have to have the what is right first. And when you know what's right, once you say, okay, what is right, and you answer that question for yourself, what is the right course, then to me, it becomes a matter of duty. You have a duty to walk your talk, and you decide a course of action that you know is right, It's your duty to fulfill it. And then the only question then is exactly how. And that's where strategy comes in. In modern politics in the United States, usually it's the exact reverse. Usually it's all about strategy. It's all about party. It's all about, compromise, the art of compromise. That's not my oath. My oath is to defend the Constitution. So if it's not, just like with my work for Congressman Paul, his first question was, is it constitutional? Stop right there. If it's not constitutional, he can't do it and won't do it, no matter how good an idea he might otherwise think it is. The first question is it constitutional? And we used to see lobbyists come in from all kinds of different organizations into our office when I was there working for Congressman Paul, and they'd come in and start talking about policy and how this is a good thing and a bad thing. And the legislative director, Joe Becker, would say, hold on a second. First of all, is it constitutional? And if the answer is no, then we're done. And that was the way it was for about 99% of the guys who walked through the door, the lobbyists. We were done with them because it wasn't constitutional. And they'd sit there with their mouth dropped open. But that was how he did it. Is it constitutional first? Only if he says, yes, it's constitutional, now you can discuss whether or not it's a good idea, like declaring war on, name your country, China or Russia or Iraq. It's constitutional, but it still might not be a good idea. So for him, it was whether it's constitutional or not, and then whether or not it's a good idea, which means does it fit in with his conceptions of liberty and responsibility and prudence. And I think I do the same thing. Is it constitutional? Is it right? Okay, second question. And then only after that does it come down to strategy. So guard against the temptation inside yourself to start thinking about strategy and practical politics and real politics and all that kind of crap. First and foremost, always be centered on whether or not it's right. When it's right, then you have to say, okay, I will do it. Now we can talk about strategy, about how we do it. And so, like for us within Oath Keepers, well, a good recent example is just last week I said that John McCain should be tried for treason and then hung by the neck until dead if sentenced. And so some people were saying I shouldn't have said that. Maybe in the past I've said he should be tried for treason because I have to consider him a traitor to the Constitution, and he should be sentenced and suffer the consequences, the rightful sentence. And I left it at that. This time, the only thing I did is I added on what the sentence would be. And apparently, because of that, the leftist media in particular has grabbed that and tried to use it as a weapon against Republican sitting legislators who were at the event. So you can say, well, as a matter of strategy, maybe I shouldn't have said hang him by the neck until dead. Maybe I should have just stopped that he's a traitor and should be tried for treason like I've done in the past. So fair point. So I might have made a mistake by going that far, but maybe not. Maybe it's time to start calling it what it is, and just calling them out and saying, look, they should be hanging from a rope. If they're going to go down the road of destroying our Constitution, and John McCain, and you guys know, those of you who have worked with Dan in the past, know exactly what I'm talking about. He's been incredibly destructive to the Constitution, one of the very worst. I consider him the top 3 most culpable people in destroying your right to jury trial. I think he's right up there at the very top. So, but there's a question of strategy, whether or not you want to go as far as, enunciating the sentence for traitors, or whether you just want to say he's a traitor to the Constitution and should be tried for treason and get a jury trial, which he would deny us. So that's a question of strategy. But the bedrock question of whether it's right or wrong to call him out is a foregone conclusion. It's the right thing to do. I must do it. So when you, with yourself and your own mission and your messaging, be consistent and be loyal to the truth, okay? Speak truth to power. Don't be afraid to say what you know is true, and never roll back on your convictions. And I can tell you from 6 years of doing this with Oath Keepers, there have been many times when I've had people around me, even on my own board of directors, who tried to tell me, well, we shouldn't take that stand, or we shouldn't speak out on that. We should let that slide and not say anything. And my biggest regrets are the times when I've let other people convince me to not do what I knew was right. And there are a few that are out there. For example, in the shooting of Jose Jorena, the young Marine veteran down there in Tucson, by the SWAT team, you guys might remember that. SWAT raid early in the morning. He was gunned down, had his rifle still on safe, which I think is an indicator that he was trying to sort out who these people were. But the gun, the SWAT team, of course, just shot him on sight. In our protest, when we went down there to protest, first of all, I had 3 board members on my national board of directors who were former law enforcement, retired cops, who did not want to go protest. They voted against us going down there in the first place, but they were overridden, and we went ahead and went down. But to attempt to placate them or satisfy them, I said, look, we're not attacking, because they were like, oh, you shouldn't be attacking the police officers until we know all the facts. And I said, look, it's the policy of sending SWAT teams to people's homes to serve search warrants. That's the problem. That's the core of the problem. You shouldn't be using SWAT teams for this kind of purpose. They could have stopped the guy on the way home from work. They could have, gone to his workplace. He worked graveyard shift at a mine. They could have just said, hey, sit tight. We're going to search your house. There was no need to wait for him to go home, get in bed, and then do a raid. It's much like Waco was. They could have arrested Koresh while he's out jogging or just detained him while they searched his house. Same kind of situation. So I said the policy is the main problem. So I said, look, so okay, we won't criticize the officers themselves, but we'll just attack the policy. So we went down there and did a protest march, and I said, look, in my speech I said we're here not to directly attack the officers, but the policy. But you know what? That was wrong. Every officer, as we've said before, is individually responsible to decide whether or not the order he's being given is constitutional. He's on the hook as an individual and has a duty to refuse. And so I was wrong to soften my message by saying, oh, we're attacking only the policies, not the officers. They're inseparable. The only reason the policy gets carried out is because there are willing officers to carry it out, and they need to be held accountable. So I was wrong. So as an example, don't roll back on your core philosophy, and always be careful, even when you're discussing policy or strategy, always be careful and watch for the temptation in the name of strategy that ends up being actually a compromise of your values, like I did there. And what's ironic about that is those 3 board members resigned anyway. We lost them anyway. And good riddance. If they can't call out fellow cops, I don't need them. And that goes back to strategy and message again. It does me no good at all to say we're an association of military police and firefighters, and we're reaching out to them if we're not willing to tell cops, hey, look, here's where you're doing things that are wrong. If we're so afraid, and this was kind of the message from those cops on the board and others who left, is, if you attack the police, then they won't listen to you. You never have a credibility in their eyes. They'll never be willing to listen to you. Well, if I don't tell them when they're doing something wrong, then what's the point in talking to them? If all I'm ever going to do is kiss their butt and tell them they're wonderful, we're great Americans, like Sean Hannity would do, if that's all we're doing, then what's the point of Oath Keepers? We have to be willing to say, this is wrong, here's why it's wrong, you need to correct this, along with saying kudos when they do good stuff. So I think a lot of people, in the interest of retaining their ability to talk to the police, are so worried about the perception among the police officers that they don't want to call them out. And so they're saving themselves for some rainy days in the future. They're trying to retain this ability to reach them while not calling them out right now. But it's like, well, then what are you saving yourself for? When are you ever going to call them out? And so just be really careful when you're doing your advocacy that you don't compromise your values, that you speak the truth. You do it in as tactful a way as you can, but without destroying your mission. You can't set aside your principles, and you must at least speak the truth. And so if it comes right down to it, I think in the environment we're in right now, as late in the game as it is, I think we need to start being more focused on what is right and saying what is true and being blunt than worrying too much about being PC. The media is never going to like anything you have to say. They are always going to attack you. You can count on it. I don't care how artfully you put it. I don't care how eloquent you are. In fact, in response to my comment about John McCain, I got a contact from a TV station down there in Arizona, and I went on a 10-minute Skype interview with them explaining, here's what he did. He sponsored the bill that amended the NDAA of 2012 to add in the detention provisions that are now codified in law. Here's why this is so unconstitutional. Here's why this is so dangerous. Here's why it's really an American version of the Fuhrer principle. that the leader can decide life and death over anybody in the country. I laid it all out. None of that got in the report. The only thing they said is, I wanted to hang John McCain because he's just like Hitler. That's all they said. So no matter what you do, whenever what you say, the mainstream media, which are a propaganda organ of the state, they are going to twist it. They're going to abuse it. So don't worry about what they say. I think a lot of times people get so wrapped around the axle about public perception. I've seen with the Oath Keepers. They're like, oh, perception is reality. Well, maybe, only to an idiot. So you can't help what the media is going to do. All you can do is try to be as consistent in your own message and stand on your rock, what you know is true, and speak truth. They're going to twist it no matter what you do. But the discerning person will go and find the truth. And that's where the alternative media comes. That's where you putting out your own statements online. One thing they can't control is the internet. They can control mainstream media. So, but don't worry so much about them. You flow around them like water around a rock. You go to the people on Facebook, you go to the people across the web, they can come straight to your website, and you have your very clear, succinct statements about what you said, why you said it, etc. One other thing I recommend you do is always tape all your interviews. If you do engage with the mainstream media, definitely tape every single interview. Make them know, let them know that you're taping it, so they at least can't misquote you. They might leave out everything else and pick the most salacious thing you said, like they do with me all the time. But they can't misquote me because I record the interview on my end, always. I never do an interview without recording it, and that keeps them on their toes. And that also gives you the option of putting the entire interview out there if you need to counter their selective, parsing out of what you said. So always record your interviews. And the other thing is that there are some people you just got to write off. Like Alan Colmes contacted me from Fox News. And some people might be like, oh, I get to be on Fox News. Alan Colmes I did a show before, and he's a disingenuous sack of crap. So I just told the guy, no, I'm boycotting Alan Colmes. Just like I wouldn't give an interview to Southern Poverty Law Center. Because when you give an interview to your enemies, all you're really doing is giving them more credibility in the facade that they're somehow journalist or impartial. Because they can say, oh, we contacted them for comment, and here's what they had to say. It gives them more credibility. Don't give it to them. Make them have to take what you have on your website, what you've said somewhere else. Give them only that to quote. Don't give them the perception of credibility and fairness by having you on the show or having you interview for them. So if they're nothing but hacks and just partisan attack dogs for propaganda, let them spin out on their own. Don't give them any credibility. So Southern Poverty Law Center, I completely boycott Alan Colmes. I boycott Chris Matthews. Same thing, I rejected interviews. Only give interviews to people that will at least be fair. Or, here's another part about strategy and marketing. For example, I did an interview with Bill O'Reilly. That was a great windfall for us because his audience is actually far more conservative or even libertarian than Bill O'Reilly will ever be. He's kind of a schmuck, doesn't even know what he believes in. And in that interview, he defended the gun confiscation during Katrina, and I was able to make some pretty good hay out of that and kind of call him on the carpet. And his readership and his viewership actually sided with me. And so we got a large number of new folks come into Oath Keepers, new members, donations, everything rolled in because of that, because the audience was worth it to me to be on his show. So always think about that. Alan Colmes' audience, they're never going to join Oath Keepers or support anything we do. Southern Poverty Law Center's audience, same thing. So there's no point in talking to them. So keep that in mind. As a matter of strategy and messaging, speak to people who at least give you a chance to talk to others out there who are, open to your message. Then even if you have a heated debate like Bill O'Reilly and I did, at least you have a fair exchange and they hear your message. And they're worth you talking to. Don't cast your pearls before swine. So, I know we're trying to be, nonpartisan and open to everybody, but there are some people out there, some audiences that you're just not going to reach them. You're not going to reach Alan Colmes' audience, for example, until there's a Republican president. Then they might listen. So then their own freak out over government power returns because there's a bad guy in office. So, but until then, it's diminishing returns trying to talk to an audience like that, unfortunately. So my main mission right now, while there's a Democrat in office as part of strategy again, is to focus on deprogramming all the conservatives who were brainwashed by the neocons. So that's why I think it's definitely okay for me to attack John McCain, and I'm going to take advantage of that to try to teach the conservatives. Look, here is what he did that causes me to say that. Here is why you need to start looking at your own party, not just the Democrats. And once the Democrats are out of power and Republicans in power, that window is probably going to shut, and all those Republicans are going to go back to sleep. And now I'll have to try to start working on the political left. So that's what I have to say about messaging and strategy on messaging. So, any questions?
Yes. You got me up yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hey,
go ahead.
Stewart, thank you so much for speaking, and I do have some questions for you.
Sure.
There will always be certain changes an organization has to make. But I don't want to have my organization co-opted, for example. How can I identify when someone is trying to change our goals from what they originally are or for the worse?
I'll tell you what, it has been also a very painful learning experience to see people that have come into my organization that I thought I could really trust. And in the end, it turns out that, like I said, we call it our cop block. You know, 3 founding member police officers, in the end, when it came right down to it, to brass tacks, would not actually call out other officers, and they went away. And so, you know, and there was an attempted coup on my board, and it's actually happened a couple of times. It's just part of human nature. You're going to experience it. If you found an organization in particular, you will count on it. You will face a coup attempt in your organization. People who will get it in their head that they know it better than you, that you've gone off track. Like lately, I've had people, Oath Keepers say, "Oh, the CPT program, forming up neighborhood watches and teaching people how to do tactical self-defense and all this stuff. That's off our mission. Our mission is only RTI." And I'm like, hey, I know our mission because I'm the guy that started it. So there's an internal struggle inside of Oath Keepers right now. I call it the exodus of the weenies, frankly. The weenies are leaving. So always make sure that you have a bedrock of control in your own organization, because you will face coups. They're going to happen. And there could be, well-intentioned people that disagree with you, or it could be that they've lost their way. They're letting their fears control them, which is what I see inside of Oath Keepers. They're not being consistent when it comes right down to it with their oath. They're being fearful and letting fear control. And so, as a founder of an organization in particular, like my wife pointed out to me, that I'm in a different posture than a lot of our rank and file. They might feel more vulnerable to being rounded up someday, or put on a list and rounded up, than I do, because And also, the other thing is, this is my life mission. Some folks will come into your organization that they believe in the cause and they're willing to do some work, but it's not their life mission. I'm willing to give my life to do what I do. In fact, I count on it. I just long ago said my life is forfeit anyway. I don't really worry about it. I'm here to do a mission. But just understand that as the founder of an organization, or the main leader, you are in a different posture than those who are following you, and you might have a clearer vision. I encourage you to stick to your vision. Whatever it was made you want to do what you do, don't let go of it, and don't let anybody else get you off course. Yes, you need to listen to advice. There are times when I've made mistakes that, maybe I should have listened to some other advice, but main thing is don't compromise yourself, and watch out, because you will have people who will come into your organization who will attempt to compromise it, or change it. And these are even good intentioned people, let alone the provocateurs and the government agents that will infiltrate you and try to steer you in the wrong way. So be very, very mindful.
A question from our chat room that I'll even expand on a little bit, from Alex Moore. Can you expand a little bit on the brainwashing aspects, whether it's either neocon to conservative or statist to liberal, just the brainwashing in general?
It's extremely difficult. This is part of what the Party Law Center does, is when they label you a right-wing extremist or whatever it is, that's their way of marginalizing you to the point where the other person will not listen to you. And this is where the left has been successful. You look at the left, they have many different organizations across a wide front, and they all go from different angles. And we can learn a lot from that. I won't be, because of the branding, my own branding, and also the branding being put on me, it's extremely unlikely that I'll be able to convince anyone right now, at least, who's on the political left, who considers themselves a Democrat or an Obama supporter of almost anything. You'd have to go get Professor Turley or what's her name? What's her last name? Wolf. I forgot her first name now. But you got to go find someone on the political left who's considered on the left, has the branding of being on the left, and only they, like Professor Turley, for example, has been very outspoken against Obama's policies. Only they are able to reach people on the political left. So you can go back to once again your niche. My niche right now is military veterans and conservatives. That might shift if we see a shift in power to a Republican president. Then it might be I lose half my membership at Oath Keepers. So what? What's the point of Oath Keepers? It's the mission first. So your niche will shift, and your niche will kind of change depending on the political environment. But it also might just be that you're going to be stuck in that niche no matter what you do, like me. I think it's very unlikely that leftists will ever listen to me because they've been hit with a drumbeat over and over again that I'm right wing and I'm illegitimate and et cetera. And I'm attacking their president. So they see me, if you attack, like during the Bush years when I was at Yale Law School, I would criticize Bush for all the things he was doing wrong. And a lot of the professors there thought I was a leftist because I was criticizing Bush. So I got pigeonholed as a leftist, ironically, while at Yale Law School. So, it's going to happen to you no matter what you do. So you just have to deal with that. And the brainwashing thing, you might have to just go find an ally who they will listen to. Go feed your information to somebody else who is more palpable. Like I'd love to have, some articulate young black libertarian or hey, articulate young black leftist who's considered on the political left. I'd like to have him give the message to the black community of go protect your own neighborhoods like we did at Ferguson. And in fact, we just had a phone call about Baltimore, and it turns out one of our members in Pennsylvania is a retired Baltimore PD. He's a black police officer. So my strategy there is to send him into the Baltimore neighborhoods and encourage the black veterans to get up and guard their neighborhoods, take away the false choice between chaos and a police state. So as a matter of strategy there, it's dumb for me, a white guy, to go walk into the Baltimore black neighborhoods and try to organize neighborhood watches. I'll send a black veteran from Baltimore.
Well, Stewart, I thank you so much. Great presentation. We appreciate you coming on to ACCON 2. Look forward, of course, me being an Oath Keeper as well, working with you in the future. Be well, and we'll be talking soon.
Great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, folks.